The St. Jude's Cathedral was bathed in the warm, golden glow of 1,000 white candles. The air was thick with the scent of expensive lilies and the faint, ancient smell of incense. This was the wedding of the decade. Cassandra stood at the head of the aisle, a vision of absolute wealth and grace. She wasn't wearing a traditional white dress. She wore a custom-made, high-end bridal gown of deep navy heavy silk that shimmered like the midnight ocean. Around her neck was a diamond necklace that caught the flickering candlelight, throwing prismatic sparks against the stone walls. Her wrists were stacked with gold luxury bracelets, and a custom gold watch, a gift from her groom, glinted on her arm. Beside her stood Marius, her groom, wearing a royal blue tuxedo with silk lapels. He looked at her with a calm, steady pride, unaware that the sanctuary was about to be violated by a man who respected nothing but his own greed. The heavy, hand-carved oak doors of the cathedral didn't just open. They were kicked inward with a violent crash that sent a shockwave through the pews. Leopold, a veteran sergeant known for his taxing of local businesses, marched down the center of the aisle. His boots thudded rhythmically against the marble, a sound of war in a house of peace. He wore his tactical uniform, but beneath the dark fabric, a bold red undershirt was visible, a flash of his aggressive, predatory nature. Behind him scurried Thaddeus, a rookie officer in a bold red-trimmed tactical vest, his hand resting nervously on his holster. Leopold's face was twisted into a realistic, unmasked expression of aggressive rage. He didn't care about the sanctity of the wedding. He saw a wealthy woman in deep navy and saw an opportunity for a shakedown. Wedding's over. Everybody get your hands where I can see them. Leopold bellowed, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling like a thunderclap. Cassandra didn't scream. She stepped back defensively, her hand reaching out to steady herself against the altar. "Officer, you are interrupting a private ceremony. There are children here. Please, state your business calmly," she said, her voice a cool, authoritative royal blue. Leopold didn't stay calm. He lunged forward, invading Cassandra's personal space until he was so close she could see the sweat on his brow and the gritted line of his teeth. He looked at the diamonds around her neck and the gold on her wrists. "Business? My business is suspicious assets. Princess, and you look like one big walking pile of evidence." When Marius stepped forward to intervene, Leopold's aggression turned physical. He reached out with a lightning-fast, violent motion and grabbed the collar and lapel of Cassandra's deep navy silk gown. He twisted the expensive fabric into his fist, the sound of the silk straining under his grip. He physically jerked her toward him, pulling her away from the altar and toward the first row of pews. "Let her go," Marius shouted, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. Leopold ignored him. He delivered a heavy-handed, aggressive shove to Cassandra's shoulder, forcing her to stumble backward. Thaddeus moved in from the side, grabbing Cassandra's other arm and twisting it behind her back. The force caused one of her gold bracelets to snap and hit the floor with a sharp metallic ring. Leopold then pinned her against a heavy stone pillar, his face inches from hers. "You think your money makes you untouchable? In my city, the only thing that matters is the badge. And right now I'm the king of this church." The witnesses, Penelope in a yellow dress and a bias in a white suit, stood frozen in the pews. Their faces were masks of horror as they raised their phones, capturing the raw, unmasked aggression as the officers physically manhandled the bride. Leopold grabbed Cassandra's wrist, his fingers digging into her skin right next to her gold watch, and began to pull her toward the exit. "Move, or I'll have you in the back of the van in pieces." He had no idea that the man in the royal blue tuxedo wasn't just a groom. He was the one man in the state who had the power to make Leopold disappear. The scene shifted from the sanctity of the cathedral to the cold, fluorescent glare of the 12th precinct lobby. Leopold marched through the doors, his bold red undershirt damp with sweat from his exertion. He was still physically dragging Cassandra by the arm, her deep navy silk gown trailing across the dirty linoleum floor. Thaddeus followed behind, clutching the yellow evidence bag that contained the gold bracelets they had forcibly stripped from her wrists at the altar. "Book her for resisting and unexplained wealth," Leopold barked at the desk sergeant. He turned to Cassandra, his face twisting into that familiar, unmasked snarl of aggressive rage. "Where's your high society attitude now, princess?" Those diamonds look a lot smaller under these lights, don't they? Cassandra stood her ground, her royal blue gaze never wavering. Leopold, I told you at the altar that you were making a mistake. You didn't just arrest a bride. You invaded a sanctuary and assaulted a citizen. The debt for that is going to be collected in full. Leopold laughed, leaning in to aggressively poke his finger against her shoulder. Who's going to collect it? Your pretty boy Groom? He's probably halfway to the airport by now, running from the mess I made. The laughter in the room died instantly. A high-pitched tone rang through the precinct's PA system, followed by the sound of every computer terminal locking simultaneously. The screens turned a deep, vibrating royal blue. Suddenly, the massive tactical monitors above the desk, usually reserved for wanted posters, flickered to life. A bold, close-up video began to play. It was the footage from the cathedral. The entire precinct watched as Leopold's unmasked, snarling face appeared in high definition, his hands violently grabbing Cassandra's silk collar and jerking her toward the pillar. The audio of his threats echoed through the hallways. The front doors of the precinct burst open. A team of 20 tactical officers in deep navy uniforms and white tactical helmets swarmed the lobby. In the center of the formation was Marius. He was no longer wearing the tuxedo. He was dressed in a royal blue tactical vest with the letters IAD Chief embroidered in gold across the chest. Behind him stood the district attorney and the state police commissioner. Leopold's face drained of all color, his skin turning a sickly, translucent white that made his bold red shirt look like a target. The yellow evidence bag slipped from Thaddeus's trembling hands and hit the floor. Marius, Leopold stammered, his voice cracking. I thought you were just a businessman. The file said what I wanted to say, Leopold. Marius said, his voice a calm, lethal blade of authority. I've been tracking your shakedowns for 18 months. I wanted to see if you were arrogant enough to walk into a house of God to steal from a woman. You didn't disappoint. The lobby was now flooded with people. Penelope and Tobias arrived, leading a group of wedding guests and news reporters. Their phones were out, live streaming Leopold's collapse to every news station in the state. Leopold Vance, Marius announced, stepping into the villain's personal space. By the authority of the Internal Affairs Division, you are stripped of your rank. Your badge is revoked. Your pension is forfeited to pay the justice debt you owe the city. Leopold, in a final, desperate burst of aggressive panic, tried to lunge toward the side exit, aiming a violent shove at a junior officer. He didn't get 2 steps. 2 Internal Affairs agents grabbed Leopold by his arms, twisting him behind his back in a brutal, firm lock. They forced him to his knees on the very floor where he had tried to humiliate Cassandra. Thaddeus was grabbed by his bold red-trimmed vest and forced down beside him. The crowd of witnesses cheered, their camera flashes illuminating Leopold's sweaty, terrified face. Dragged him out, Marius commanded. The agents physically dragged Leopold and Thaddeus to the precinct lobby, their feet scuffing and kicking against the tiles. They were pulled to the front doors and out onto the sidewalk, where a crowd of hundreds had gathered. In a final act of public disgrace, Marius took Leopold's badge and tossed it into a green trash bin on the curb. Cassandra walked down the precinct steps, her deep navy silk gown catching the afternoon sun. Marius met her at the bottom, handing her the gold bracelets that had been recovered. The wedding isn't over, Marius said, his eyes softening, but the corruption in this district is. They stepped into a waiting deep navy luxury sedan. As the car pulled away, the last thing Leopold saw through the dirt of the sidewalk was the royal blue flash of the man who had truly destroyed his power. The justice debt was paid in full.